One of the things about so many of the songs that made a difference to me from Heart in my youth is that they were about adventuring. They were about drifting forth on the sea, leaving home. You know, there was a sense of a female adventurer. And you're nodding your head, so perhaps that was intentional.
Well, not calculated, but definitely, yeah. We always wrote songs about things that were happening to us, for sure.
And we were writing songs that were from the perspective of a human,
Right.
and not only a woman, but you know, a person in the world. So it's not just through the eyes of or the experience of being a woman.
Right.
In the world, it's a person in the world.
You, Anne, as a voice, I mean, I think your voice has become a touchstone in this era of reality television competitions because it represents, I don't know, like in the gymnastics scale, it's a 10. It's, well, you know, if they were scoring. So, I mean, how does that feel for you to be an ideal presented within the context of reality television?
Well, people have said that to me, you know, especially about the song Alone, I think, because it does present physical challenges, just because it goes high and loud, and it has to be precise. It's not that much pressure for me because I learned a long time ago to release myself from that kind of pressure. It's ridiculous to try and take it on.
Right. Well, but you know, you also have this incredibly well-preserved instrument. I've seen a lot of singers get into the middle of their careers and lose that. And I've read that you say all you do is take vitamin C. I find this hard to believe.
I do take a lot of vitamin C, but I have to be really careful. You know, I have to be really careful. I don't smoke anything. I don't drink any alcohol. Those things all are really drying, and they mess with your muscle with your muscles basically. Especially alcohol will make you relax. So it's fine for some kinds of singing, but in a song where you really want to punch and keep it clear.
I don't want to talk too much about marketing, and I know you've talked a lot in interviews about that and like how you've been portrayed on album covers and all that stuff. But aside from like the gender issue, I wondered if you thought because your sound was sort of like Elton's, its own thing, if that made it more difficult for your labels to market you.
Yeah, you know, the times when we've been the happiest with the way our albums have looked have been the times when we've gotten the most pushy and taken the most control over it. And it's not easy because you end up in this immediate struggle with the very people you want to be on your side, you know, the marketing people. And you don't want to piss them off and make them not believe in you and not go out and support you by becoming an adversary, but sometimes there's just no other way to get yourself the way you want to be seen or heard. I think the Baby Lestrange album cover is an example of us just going, okay, we are going to design this shot, you know, and this is how we want to be seen. In
many ways, I think one thing that's changed since the beginning of your career is how we all conceive of what a rock band is, because the Beatles, it was presented to us as this band of brothers, 4 people, had to have all 4 of them. But in a way, Heart is much more contemporary now because it's a series of collaborators that realize your vision. And I just wonder, you know, your collaborators, not your songwriting collaborators, sometimes you've worked with, like with Sue Ennis, who's obviously female, but how have you managed it, all those many male collaborators you've had over the years?
Well, you know, Heart is an ongoing, progressive, you know, ever-changing, ever-evolving thing. And Heart was already a band before I was in it.
It was White Heart, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was White Heart, and then it was Heart too.
Oh, it was Heart. Okay.
They had it down to Heart, and then a bunch of changes, and then along the way, I answered a newspaper ad in Seattle. They wanted a singer, and that's when I got in. So it was already going. So that's just how it's just been this ever-evolving deal. And some people have sort of rotated in and out of the band, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Come and gone, you mean?
Yeah, And some people feel good about it, some people don't feel so good about it. It's not a clean, tidy thing. Some of the guys from way back when would probably be real happy to be in the band now. But it's like any kind of relationship. When it's done, you can't just put it back together for the sake of the people outside.
Right, absolutely. And how about your collaboration? Your sisters, this is the deepest bond that can exist, but there must be times when it's like, are you kidding? Nancy, says Anne, I mean, how do you deal with it?
Well, we've come from a military family in the Marine Corps where we traveled a lot as a real tight little unit. And, we found music was kind of our denominator and our language. The sibling rivalry thing, we just hardly ever existed. It was more when we got into leading the band and especially into the treacherous waters of the 80s. When it was huge money and huge imaging going on. Right. And we were suddenly kind of cast into this unfamiliar sort of inauthentic landscape where we didn't feel that we could be our natural selves. Wait a minute, wasn't this supposed to be about music?
Right.
So that's kind of when things got tough between us because we were being pigeonholed in such a way that neither of us were comfortable. Yeah. And trying to steer that ship was not easy because it was so much corporation going on. And
you were successful, that's the thing. It's like commercially
really
you were successful, so how could you walk away from that? And actually I think that's relevant to the fact we're at South by Southwest, because one thing that's happened in the music industry is there's many different ways, and you have explored many different ways to do your career now. But in the 80s, did any other options seem possible even?
No, it was like if you have a #1 hit on the radio, life changes so radically that you wouldn't believe it. It's just one day it's one way, the next day you have a #1 hit, and the amount of work and it takes to get there and the amount of recognition and positive reinforcement you get from that is very seductive, right, to say the least. You start drinking champagne and you don't stop for years, but the good part about all that, of course, is that for us it really taught us what was important and what wasn't.
You guys are awesome. You're an inspiration. Forget the gender stuff. You're just an inspiration, period.
Thank you.
Yes, true.
Question.
Very true.
You guys do a lot of different types of music, have always done a lot of different types of music. Can you get away with that these days?
That's a good question.
I don't know. I really don't know.
Great question.
Yeah.
I think we've always been a little, sort of schizophrenic because we do really soft and we do really hard and we do stylistic things in between. And that's a really good question because we came out of the Beatles era, right, where they had a variety show. Like think of the White Album, or Sgt. Pepper. But can women do that? Can men even do that? It's a really good question.
Well, excuse me, I think it all goes to attention span. Right. Like how much attention span does the audience have? Will they follow you through a bunch of changes? I don't know. There's so much saturation.
My question is, if I can take you back to the second album. It's my understanding that what you guys conceived as the second album ended up pieces on some songs on Magazine, and some songs on Little Queen, the last Mushroom and the first Columbia. Yeah. And I was wondering if you had ever thought, now that times are different and it's possible to get rights, of reissuing the second album as you originally conceived it.
Well, I don't think.
Great question.
Yeah, good question. And it's not really possible because we were in the process of writing when all that legal stuff happened, and it stopped us in our writing tracks. So all the stuff didn't get written for that second album. There are only a few songs that were cohesive enough before everything got too crazy to write,
Magazine was a good concept album.
Yeah.
With, articles and pictures and pages, and it was a cool idea. So
sure would have been great.
There's always another way to do that, I'm sure.